Ric Bucher, welcome to the Way Champions podcast. Jerry and I are honored to have you on and talk about your brand new book, Coachable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and love what you guys do. We are of like minds when it comes to what the value of playing sports ultimately can be, which goes way beyond whatever you're doing on the field or the court.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen to that. Were you? I mean, you were a college soccer player at Dartmouth. I see.
Yep.
Were you coachable, or is this something that is this book penance?
Yeah, great question, and nailed it right at the start. Ultimately, I became coachable because it was by force in a way. I didn't necessarily see the value of it. I had, they always talk about athletes or people in general. Either you need to give them confidence or maybe you need to tamp down their confidence. I was in the tamp down confidence arena and or category. And but in order to get on the field, I was a goal scorer in high school. And in order to get on the field in college, I got moved back till my senior year. I was a stopper, and so I had to learn how to play a part of the game that didn't come natural to me, but I wanted to play, and I would say that my experience, because I still in my mind, we didn't score a whole lot of goals. I'm like, I can do that. I can give that to us, right? And that fuel of not knowing how to approach that is at least in part not only the inspiration for the book, but probably the inspiration for the rest of my professional career, in terms of how do I get to where I want to go, or how do I synthesize my vision of who and what I can be with someone else's vision. And I went at it hard, but I don't know that I necessarily did it the right way.
I think it's really interesting that you say that. Being someone who is in the sports world as a reporter and everything, and a commentator, and then a soccer player. Do you remember the U.S. national team player Jay DeMerit at all? He played in the 2010 World Cup.
Jason
Jay DeMerit, he's a Wisconsin guy. He went and played in the English
I know
Premier
the name.
League. Yeah,
Yep.
but it's fun. It's interesting. His story. He's been on the podcast here, and his story was sort of similar. He was a forward, and they had like two center backs hurt, and the coach is like, "Well, you play center back," and he's like, "I'd never played there in my life," but the answer was, of course, yes, because I just want to play, right? And he ended up playing for the U.S. in the World Cup and playing in the English Premier League and everything, because he was always willing to just say, well, let me be prepared for my moment and let me say yes to as many things as possible, versus, like you said, having the ego that says, I'm a goal scorer. He was like you. He's like, I was a forward. We need goals, coach. Why are you putting me in center back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Brandi, I was struck by Brandi Chastain, had the exact same experience. And what I love about her story is that she had to become a wingback in order to get back into the national team program. And then lo and behold, she scores the most iconic goal in women's soccer history. So it's evidence, and throughout the athletes that I have in this in the book, and just other experiences, people outside of sports, where they were willing to sublimate their ego or make the sacrifices in order to have an opportunity, even if it wasn't in the shape that they had hoped it would be. And lo and behold, it would often take them to exactly where they wanted to go. They just couldn't see that path when they started on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to stick with the Dartmouth thing for one moment. Like, was your, because Jerry and I were talking before you jumped on about this idea of coachability and how much of that is internal to the athlete and how much of that is external to the environment that the coach creates that draws it out of the athlete. Yeah. We have so many examples of athletes who were, quote, uncoachable until they found the right coach and the right environment and they blossomed.
Yeah.
Whose fault is that? Or I don't know that we have to assign blame, but...
Right. Well, it's when I was selling the book, they asked me who I'm writing it for. And I said, I'm writing it for the athlete, but it's as if the coaches and the parents or mentors are in the next room listening, because I don't believe it's one or the other. I do believe that the athlete or the performer, whoever it is, whatever you do, you have to be the captain of your own ship. You ultimately have to make the decisions that are going to take you where you want to go and be open to that. But we can encourage that in a multitude of ways. And I believe parents have a huge influence on shaping that mentality very early on. You know, 10, 11, 12 years old, when kids are just getting into sports, about what sports are supposed to mean and what you gain from them, which is, it's not the trophy. It's not I'm on the A team. It's not even that I'm starting. It's that I was faced with a challenge, whether it's by my coach or the opponent, whatever it might be, and I learned how to work around it. I learned how to get better. I learned how to improve. I learned how to listen. Like, those are the things that we want to get out of it, because those are the things that are going to serve us going forward. And one of the motivations is my kids had just gone through. Kids are both still playing collegiately, but we had gone through all the youth programs, and I'm listening and watching, and I'm like, we're missing the boat here. Like, every parent in this room, you know, on the select soccer team is thinking their kid's going to go D1, and that's the be all and the end all. And, you know, quietly, I think that, you know, they might go D1, but my kid's going to be pro. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, one, I know the percentages, I know the numbers. That ain't going to happen. And you have no idea at 10, 11, 12 years old whether your kid's going to be physically capable of playing at that level, or they even want to play at that level. And so we're missing ultimately what playing a sport can do for you. And so I wanted to collect as many high profile and both ends of the spectrum, because there's a couple people in the book that aren't necessarily, you know, Steve Young, Brandi Chastain, Steph Curry level in terms of people's awareness, but I wanted their stories that reflected what the mindset was, not only of theirs, but of their parents and their coaches early on, and how that led them to where they are now.
Yeah. Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah. Rick, you just inspired me to think about this idea. When you mentioned parents, OMG, it's like, that's where it all starts. That's where life starts. And I was just thinking, coachability is really, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I don't want to get your concept, mixed up with what I'm trying to say. But I think coachability is really a quality that is learned, and it is from the environment, in the family, when you're a child. And I think that coachability piece is connected to learning how to be a lifelong learner.
For sure.
You know, and so when I grew up, I remember the image of my dad. My dad only went to, he graduated first in his class in elementary school. And that was it. He didn't go to high school. But he made his way up in the New York City Fire Department to be a battalion chief, and he did it by learning, by studying, by teaching me the value of what it's like to learn. And my image of him is sitting in his chair, My dad had his chair. No one else sat in that. And he was always reading, always studying, always trying to advance, open to learning. And I got that message. And when I look at my whole career, I mean, at my age, I mean, I'm only halfway there. I'm still learning. I've got so much to learn. And I love it. And what do I love is the process. So I think a lot of these kids who come to us and we're trying to coach them, they don't have that background. And maybe we need to reach the parents. And I like the idea that your book is, the parents could be in the next room listening.
Yeah.
But they need to listen, and we can start teaching coachability at an early age. Is that all in line with what you're thinking?
For sure. I mean, my vision is that whether it's an athlete or it's somebody who wants to become a CEO, wherever they might be in an organization, that or just a young intern, right, is trying to figure, well, what does coachable mean, and how do I reach the goals that I have, the level that I want to reach? That they read it and then they take it either to their mentors or their bosses or their parents and say, hey, you should read this. Because to your point, it's really hard to divide the two, right? I can't say that it's all environment. I can't say it's all the individual, because there had to be something about you that appreciated what your dad was doing. Like, why were you watching him? And why did you gravitate toward that? And why did you value that? Like, that to me is teaching the performer or the aspiring athlete what they should be looking for and who they should value, right? Because it's really easy for us to look at, well, I want to be, I need the best coach, or I need to play on the best team. No, you don't. No, you don't. My book is filled with people who ended up being champions on the highest level that didn't have that coming up. We now are of the mindset, whether it's the athlete or it's the parents, that, well, we have to have the best of the best. No, you don't. And that's not what this is about. Now, you have to have certain requisite tools to be able to get there. If you want to learn how to shoot a basketball, you need a basketball, you need a court, like you need certain basic things. But we've shifted it to, if I want to be great, I have to have the greatest equipment. I have to have the greatest coaching. No, if you're you need to discover what's here. And as soon as you put the responsibility on the equipment or the people that you're working with, then from a parent standpoint, what you're telling your kids is you're really not good enough. Like, you really need these other things, instead of, you know what, if you figure out how to tackle a problem, if you are willing to face your weaknesses and work on them, you can solve anything. And the confidence that you're giving your kid or that athlete, and that's whether it's parents or coach, they can take anywhere. And to me, that's what I hope this book lends to, or gives the perspective to, both the athlete and the parents. Like, you don't need all the outside stuff. You need certain basic things, but then it's really about discovering your best self. And how do you do that? You have a clear-eyed view of what you can and can't do, and how do I figure out to get better at what I can't?
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting in the realm of youth sports, and I have two kids, kind of your kids' age, both in college right now, and I seen firsthand, and I coached youth sports and college sports, and like this race to the bottom of like, make the all-star team at 7 years old and get rid of the bad kids and get the good kids, and then, oh, my kid's struggling, and what would fix it would be a book that Jerry wrote or I wrote or Coachable, but they won't buy that book. They'll go buy the $300 carbon fiber baseball bat for their 9-year-old and then act like an idiot in the stands and wonder why their kid can't play, And this is the issue, is that the solutions usually lie within for a parent and a child, but it's so much easier to look for the external solution.
Sure.
To the problem, because that makes me feel good that I bought my kids some nice shoes or a new ball or a new bat or a new glove. But it's inside.
Yeah, and that's why I thought, by trying to tell this story through the voices and experiences of high-profile, successful athletes, like a Steve Young, like a Brandi Chastain, Landon Donovan, etc., and then also some of the other ones that John Stanton IV, was a walk-on twice and ended up winning a championship with the University of Georgia football team. Vast majority of people have never heard of him, right? But John can say without question that he maximized his potential, and his vision was, I want to win a championship with the University of Georgia, which just sounds like a crazy thing to say, especially when you're recruited by D3s coming out of high school, right? But he had a plan, and it wasn't really that he won the championship. That part of it ended up being true, but what he took away from it was this confidence that he's now utilized in his life subsequent, because he understands how to tackle problems. And so you're right. That's my great fear. I'm like, man, I wish, I hope that people are going to read this book, and I'm like, maybe I can slip it in with a little bit of sugar. Like, you get to hear about how Steve Young was the 8th string quarterback at BYU, or how Steph Curry was first discovered not as a basketball player but as a baseball player. That somehow is going to get people to read it and then maybe take away the lessons therein.
Yeah, like Steph Curry, he was not chosen by Mike Krzyzewski to go to Duke.
Nope.
His brother was eventually.
But he wasn't chosen to go to Virginia Tech, where his dad and his mom went.
Yeah.
He was not to give away too much of the book, but the Davidson coach first saw him as a little leaguer. It was the first time he ever laid eyes on Steph. And that's a story that's, for all that has been written about Steph Curry, that's not one that I had ever seen before. And there were takeaways that the coach had at that point. And if you know Bob McKillop from Davidson, this is the other part of it, is being aware of when someone comes into your life. And I would dare say this, Jerry, it was part of the attraction to your dad and following his example, is that you knew that he cared about you, and you knew you had a sense of, I'm trying to give you something of value here, and I believe in you. And all too often, when we have a little bit of success, we let go of the people that believe in us, and we go on to thinking, I need to go get the next great person. Like, that's good, but like, I need the expert in this now. And my belief is, we should, if the people that believe in us from the start are willing to grow with us, we should never let them go, because that has far more value than the expert who doesn't know who I am. Because again, this is about, how do I get the most out of me, right? And someone who knows me and has been on the journey with me is going to have a much better grasp of that than someone who may be great at the particular thing that I want to do, but they don't really understand who I am.
What John and I have found over the years, and we write about this all the time and teach it, is that your whole idea of when you find someone who believes in you, the interpsychic message, if I can use that term, becomes like, these people not only believe in me, they care about me. They actually, should I use the word, love me. They love me, who I am. And what we've discovered is in environments where you feel connected, cared for, loved, empowered. My father would empower me. I can remember things he would say. When you're in that place, you're willing to go the distance. You're willing to listen. You're willing to follow, right? And you got this big smile on your face, and I love it. It's great. What are you thinking? It's great.
You're hitting it out of the park. I mean, that's the essence of. Ultimately, the reason I'm smiling is because that's the essence of how I wanted to raise my kids.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be the key to being coachable. And for all the things, like, I didn't necessarily have the relationship with my parents that I wanted to have with my kids. I'm first generation American. They both came over to America as a result of the war. I never got praised. Like, I only heard when I didn't do it well enough. But I always knew that they cared. Like, my dad was my soccer coach coming up, and like, he would drive the station wagon and pick up all the kids in the neighborhood, and the big bag of soccer balls in the back, and like, I knew they cared, and I wanted my kids to understand the same thing, because again, it wasn't about the sport and how good they were going to be. It was really about, how is this going to forge our relationship, so that going forward, anytime they face a problem, anytime there's a challenge, like, they will, not that I'm going to come in and fix it, but they are not afraid to tell me when they're feeling weak, when they're feeling lost, when they're whatever it might be, so that we can collectively come up with a game plan to go through it. They still got to do the work, but to know that I'm always going to be there as a resource, and their performance is not my judgment, right? It's what do they do, how do they carry themselves, and I'm blown away. Like, as I said at the beginning, like, I wasn't very coachable, and there was times where, like, I look back at my behavior in certain situations when I was disappointed or whatever it might be. I had a penalty kick blocked that would have taken us to the sectional finals. Like, I didn't want to go home. I moped. I was walking around the field like, I wanted everybody to know how bad I felt.
Self-absorbed.
Right? And how beneath me it was that I missed that penalty kick. My kids behave in a completely much more mature way, and so I'm grateful that that's the case. But I wanted them to have something that I simply did not learn.
So what did your wife do that allowed your kids to be so wonderfully coachable?
Well, she's an athlete in her own right.
Yeah.
A triathlete. Our friends after we got married said, they missed the boat. They should have given us a scoreboard for our wedding gift.
Yeah.
But I found somebody who shared the same principles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because she was a great athlete, but she never had an opportunity to maximize that in high school or college, and so she was a runner, and she was running one day, like shortly after we met, and she's running on the road, and some guy is following her in her car and pulls over and chases her down, and it's the coach of a local community college, and he's like, hey, would you come run for my cross country team? And she's like, I'm 35 years old, and what are you talking about? And he goes, do you have any eligibility left? She goes, I didn't run in college. So anyway, she ended up being the third fastest woman in Northern California, running against 20-year-olds and whatnot. But she shared the same principles for me, which was about what we wanted our kids to learn from playing sports, as opposed to what we were hoping they would accomplish.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to like begin at the end, like you guys did, right? What do we want out of sports, and then let's work backwards. Not just like let's look in the next 3 months or 6 months and figure that out. And then the other thing that you
Exactly.
both keep talking about is just it all comes down to modeling the behaviors that you want to see, right? You know, Jerry's dad didn't sit in his chair and go, "Now, Jerry, look at me. Now I'm learning." You know, he just learned, right? And this is it. And so, you know, I think of my parents. They never complained about bosses or anything. They had their own businesses. They did their own thing. So there was never a dinner conversation blaming someone else for your position in life. And I don't think it's any coincidence that my brother, sister, and I all have our own businesses, right? Because there, you can't blame anyone. And so I think it, like, for the parents listening, it comes down to modeling. You want your kid to be coachable, you better model coachability, and you better reinforce that. Even I think in those times when you might disagree with the coach and what he or she is doing, you still have to say, you know what? They're the coach. It's their team. If it's not hurting you, figure it out. Learn from this situation.
This is not in the book, but my son ended up playing football collegiately, but basketball was his first love, and his high school team was very good, but I saw how it was coached and how it was utilized, and I was like, they're never going to reach their potential. I can see this coming, and sure enough, they didn't. They incredibly talented team. They got knocked out very early, and my son struggled because I knew what he could contribute. I knew collectively what the team could do. And anyway, I wrote this letter. I wrote this email to the coach. I resisted saying anything during the season. But at the end, I was so frustrated to see what I saw coming realized that I was like, I got to let this guy know the opportunity that he blew, not only with my son, but with the entire team. And I wrote it, and I still have it. But I asked my son, I said, look, I want to say something to coach. I've written this email. And he said, I wish you wouldn't. And he said, he goes, Dad, coaching is hard. And was I upset and disappointed? Yes, but I wish you wouldn't. And I respected that. And that to me was more important than telling the coach what he did and didn't do. It changed my relationship with my son. And I think ultimately, again, with parents who want to dive in and they want to talk to the coach, or you got to play my kid, or whatever it might be, or the message that you're giving your kid. I mean, even I ultimately was giving the wrong message to my kid, and my kid had the wherewithal to say, that's not the message that I want delivered. And so as parents, sometimes we need to listen to the kid rather than think that we know ultimately what is best. And I think that whole exchange of, we're in this together. If we're truly in this together, then I'm not going to do something that my kid doesn't feel comfortable with, ultimately.
What you were doing there, and let's not miss this, is you were intentionally, on some level, it could have been like deep psychological stuff, but you were intentionally creating a relationship with your son. And you saw the importance of that, Rick. And your son felt that. And from that came respect. And then you come on this show and you tell us you have 2 coachable kids. Duh. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like they're open. You opened up their hearts. They didn't have to close down and protect themselves. And you opened it up by being open yourself. And you had your deal. I'm going to talk to this coach, and I'm going to make sure this coach understands blah, blah, blah. And there's your son telling you, and your willingness to be open in that environment is the development of a relationship that is lifelong. Your son will always come to you now and talk with you. And so then that gets back to, and I'm really going off here, is that gets back to the whole idea of the purpose of sport anyway. It's not to be the Steph Curry and being the champion warrior backcourt point guard, leading scorer. The point is, what kind of human being can we all become through sport and be coachable for life, so that at the age of 80, you're still listening to people who are 40 and learning what you need to do to be the best version of yourself, or as you say on the book, to be to reach your highest potential. So again, I guess the umbrella here is that I'm talking about is relationships, is it not? And how you did that remarkably well.
That's the heart of it. I mean, really, the relationship between the performer or the athlete and the mentor or the parents and the coach, that triangle, like the principles and the perspective has to be shared. And if you find that, that's more important than anything else, because you want to reinforce those principles with whoever's coming up. And then you have the value of those that relationship or those relationships moving forward, being able to inform anything that you do, and understanding, you know what, I want to build my own relationships like that, because that's at the heart of the success, not just for me, but for everybody else. Yeah. And John Wooden and Phil Jackson and all these other great coaches would jump in and be right there with you. It was John Wooden who, when he retired, said, my success was the direct result of all the love I had in my coaching. Well, what is love in a coaching situation but a relationship that's developed? And all the players, you have a Bill Walton coming in with a beard on, and that's not what John wanted, but he showed him love. He didn't tell him, get rid of that beard. That would have closed him down, and then he might not have been coachable. But what John Wooden said is, you know what, that beard looks really good on you. Where are you going to be playing this fall? And that was like, 2 hours later, Bill comes back with a shaved beard. Coach, I'm all in, And so, this whole idea of without the love, all the talent and all the strategies and all this and all, it doesn't really matter, does it? No. And here's the other part. And I in some ways wish I maybe had emphasized this more in the book than I did, which is there's also value gained in being with bad coaches. that we learn what we don't want to model going forward. And two, they challenge us in a different way. How much do I love what I'm doing? What is my ability to extract what I can get out of this situation with this coach? It tests my resilience, and it forces me to find other ways to continue to, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this just because I want that coach to play me in a certain position, or I want a certain reward, or what is this really about? And there's so much that can be learned from a coach that isn't necessarily treating me the way that I'd like to be treated, or that I think I should be treated, or any of that. Because truth is, and I'm sure we've all experienced it, we're all going to be in those situations going forward. And how do we make the best of those situations? And then on the flip side, when we do find that coach, when we do find that relationship that is rewarding and is healthy and is mutually supportive, then we're like, you know what, I'm not letting this go, because I know what the other thing looks like. I know what a struggle that is. But I do think, and my daughter just went through it. I think there is, and it gives me chills to see her, like, so I've written this book about the value of being coachable, and my daughter goes from being a starter and being a star to getting injured, and then for whatever reason, coach will not put her back into the rotation. And her dream was to play in the NCAA tournament. That's why she went to this school. She had played. She'd gotten a couple minutes in the tournament as a sophomore. Kind of had to take a circuitous route. This is her last year of eligibility. I want to go someplace where I'm going to play, where I love. Again, one of her, when I told her to write her priorities for what she wanted to play on a team that had great chemistry and there was a great relationship between the players and the coach. And she wanted to get a degree, a graduate degree, and she wanted to go to the tournament and play meaningful minutes. Well, we get to the end of the season, in spite of everything, we're going to the tournament. We don't know if she's going to play, right? And we go. They play UCLA in the first round. Lo and behold, she gets in. She scores 11 points in the second quarter. She's going into halftime. They're actually competitive in the game. She ends up getting all the accolades, whatever, for her performance. He still didn't play her much in the second half or whatever, but it was like you had your moment. Like you ultimately got what you were looking. You checked all the boxes, and so I stayed out of it. My support was stay with it. The opportunity will come. There's something you're going to get out of this, but you just need to continue to work hard. You were brought here to be a leader. Be a leader. He can't get in the way of you being a leader of this team or how you support your teammates. None of that. And it all turns around, and she has that moment. Now, she might not have gotten that. She might not have gotten that moment, but the fact that she did, and I stayed out of it and allowed her to take her journey, means that she gets to embrace all of that. Like she did that, right? Yeah. And she saw how you can look at the bottom of the well, and you can think, man, like I'm not going to get this. And by the way, another part of it is I think she also wanted to get to like 1,000 points or whatever. Because of the way the season went, she didn't get that. So now she's signed with an agent. She wants to continue playing. Like, she's not done. She's still motivated to, like, I got more to do. That's another dividend of that experience. And I've kind of felt the same. I had the same with my soccer career in college was not what I wanted it to be. And I've continued to, like, okay, let me go climb some more mountains, because I didn't get to the top of that one. So let me find a few more that maybe I can reach.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that we could spend another hour just unpacking everything you just went through from a parenting, coaching perspective. So thank you. I mean, that was brilliant. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to go on. It's kind of top of mind because it's just here for. Like, this is so good. Like, I always say to people, like, as parent, like, is the situation difficult or is it dangerous? Right? If it's difficult, I lost my starting spot, I'm not playing my position, suck it up. If it's dangerous, right, there's true abuse, emotional abuse, whatever. Now, as a parent, you need to do something for the human being, not the point guard in your family, and I think that's an important distinction that's hard to make sometimes as a parent. Like, is this difficult or is this dangerous? But I think everything that your daughter's story describes, well, one of my favorite clips, I'm sure you've seen this, Rick, got made into a little ESPN segment, was Kara Lawson, the Duke women's basketball coach, talking about it doesn't get any easier, right? People waiting for the easy bus to come around. The easy bus never comes around. It just gets harder. Life gets harder. When you graduate, it doesn't get easier. So I love that clip, and I show it to parents. I'll do parent talks, and I'll at the end of the clip, I'll say, does anybody disagree with that? Is anyone in this audience going, no, I'm coasting now, this is great? And everyone laughs, right? And they're like, of course not. Then when are you going to let your kid start getting reps of doing hard stuff? And what's better than sports than letting them get reps of doing hard things? It's the best environment to do it because it's safe and you're there and you can give them perspective, and you can also keep the letter in the drawer and not send it and let them fight their own battles. And I mean, that's the greatest gift that sports can give to our kids.
100%.
And writing the letter is important too. I like the idea of keeping it in the drawer because it's a constant reminder of how you felt. And therapeutically, you get that letter written. That takes care of a lot of stuff. You don't have to tell anybody about it. It's just a wonderful. I was just wondering too if
Jerry, by the way, I reread that letter. It was a great letter, man.
Right?
I nailed it.
Yeah.
I nailed it.
Yeah.
Didn't when Abraham Lincoln died, they found a whole drawer of letters that he had written, like nasty letters to all the people, and he just never sent them, but it got the emotion of it out.
Yeah. Like my wife Jan is my confidant when it comes to letter writing. Before I send off an email, I call Jan and I say, Jan, will you just read this? Not for the writing, but just for like, am I being an idiot? You know, am I going to like step over my line here? You know, but the writing of the letter was fantastic. I mean, just like great therapy. Back to your daughter and others like her. What it brings up for me is the whole idea of meaning and purpose. Simon Sinek wrote a wonderful book you're familiar with, Start With Why. And when I read that book, I started asking that question all the time, like, why am I doing this? Like, I'll ask it today, like, why am I doing this podcast? And if I don't have some kind of meaning and purpose, a lot gets lost. And in your book, you're talking about reaching your highest level, you know, reaching your potential, being the best version of yourself, saying it any way you want to. But what it all comes down to is none of us are going to reach that potential, I don't believe, unless we really do something that's meaningful and purposeful. But so your daughter went forward and she carved a path, a way that she could maintain meaning and purpose and identity for herself. And I think that's so important for all of us to remember when we're trying to be the best version of ourselves. I always want to know, why am I still working? I'm not working at this time in my life to make a living. I'm working to make a difference. As long as I hold on to that, my work really shines. And I do make some good money doing it. But that's not the purpose. And her purpose of fulfillment, she followed through on that, and look where she is now. She still wants to go and what have you. I think that's a good message for people, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really checking our motives. Why am I doing this? What's my motive for doing this? As a parent, why do I want this for my kid? What do I hope that they get out of it? Like, that's really important. And if we stop and we acknowledge that, and honestly, if we write it down, because I think there's something about seeing something visibly in front of me. If let's say our aspiration is, I want my kid to be a D1 athletic scholarship athlete, and you write that down, right? And you look at it. That looks really small. That it? That's all we want to get out of this? We're spending all this time, money, and resource so that my kid gets that? I could probably take that money, and this has been cataloged many times. Like, you take the money that you're spending on youth sports, put it in the bank as they grow up. You're going to have the money for their scholarship, for their education, right? That's been demonstrated. So let's try to get something else out of this. And I think what I love the most about my daughter's story and that experience is her two closest friends are two freshmen on the team. One of them who ended up being the leading scorer. And those freshmen came up to me at the beginning of the year and again at the end. And they were like, we love playing with your daughter. And I would not be the player that I am. And I would not have had the experience I had without her. And since the season's been over, one of them came to our house and spent time with us. She wanted to teach her how to surf. Like, their relationship and what my daughter left behind is far greater than if she reached 1,000 points. And I guess in terms of being coachable in the approach, that was my part in it. But the rest of it is her. Like, I can't really take a whole lot of credit for that, but I can stand back and look at it and go, I couldn't even envision what a great accomplishment that would be, right? That she could walk away from that with that experience and that knowledge. And so sometimes, maybe the simplest thing is, as parents, we just need to get out of the way. Mm-hmm. Like, set the example and then get out of the way and let them learn what they need to learn and experience what they need to experience.
Don't try to write their script for them, because you never script it the way it's going to turn. It's not going to turn out that way anyway.
And you may be blowing a great story.
And you may be
blowing a much greater story.
A much greater story. So much. What I love about your book, Jerry and I love about the book, is, as parents here, we know that our kids think we're full of it. We don't know what we're talking about. And so it's so helpful. I have parents all the time ask me, like, my kid's not motivated, or my kid's disappointed, or my kid's struggling. And I always say, find a biography of an athlete they admire, a story of an athlete they admire, because you will find adversity, struggle, disappointment, injury, sadness. Everyone has it, right? Everyone has these difficulties. And this is what I love about your book. And one of the themes that's consistent, and it's a consistent theme amongst the athletes we've had on this podcast and the coaches, and I'll just use the words of a great soccer coach, Anson Dorrance. He says one of the jobs of a coach is to help athletes get their personal narrative as close to the truth as quickly as possible. Once your narrative is close to the truth, now you can get better. But if you're living in a world where your parents and everyone else is telling you you're so great and you're getting screwed over, that's it. Steve Young would have never become Steve Young as the 8th-string quarterback at BYU unless he was like, I guess I got to get better and beat out 7 guys, right? So just your thoughts on that common theme amongst these athletes.
Yeah. Well, first of all, what was crazy is that, like, I had all these different athletes from different sports, different generations, different genders, obviously. And yet there were common themes that came up in terms of what fueled their success and what they valued the most looking back. And what they valued the most were the situations where they struggled and they were allowed to struggle. That's what they gained the most from. And look, and I appreciate this as a parent. We don't want to see our kids struggle. We want them to be successful. And we can buy into that because it's a good motive. Like, we want our kids to be successful. Okay, but underlying that is a bad approach, which is we're going to do it for them. No. That's not accomplishing what we want to accomplish here. And so that was the crazy part, is that, and I think for most of us, like, we don't change and we don't grow without a certain amount of pain, without a certain amount of frustration. That's what brings the best out in us. I'm just watching LeBron James in a playoff game. He was playing okay, and then he got mad because he thought he was being disrespected. And now he's hitting shots and he's doing things that he had not previously been doing. That's just kind of a microcosm of where, when we get frustrated or challenged, we go to another level. And I would say, honestly, my kids have seen the same thing, in terms of they weren't in the position they wanted to be in. And, I mentioned my son played basketball. He was frustrated with that. He ended up, he took full advantage of football as a result of that. And again, being a leader and maximizing what he could ultimately do. Because he saw that opportunity and he didn't want to waste it. Well, would he have seen it the same way if he had not been in this other situation where it didn't happen? I don't I don't know, but from my personal experience, when I have an experience and I see it as a missed opportunity for whatever reason, I'm like, you know what? I'm not letting the next one I might lose too, but it's not going to be because of anything that I did. Like, I'm going to do everything possible to make this happen.
Yeah. You know, in Chinese, the word for crisis means two things at the same time. It means danger, watch out, this could be bad, or it means opportunity. Loosely translated, it's opportunity blowing on a dangerous wind. And I think of all of the crises that come up in my life and in the lives of people I know, and it's really all about adversity and the opportunity to learn from that and to be a better you. And adversity is really seems to be the pathway to greatness in a sense. And you know, here's another concept I'll throw in with that, which is gratitude. Yeah, we're all grateful for the wonderful home we have, and gee, I just got a book out, I'm so grateful for the book, and my kids are doing well, and I'm really grateful. But are we grateful for the adversity? And if we think about that and take that in deeply, then to be able to really understand that all of our setbacks, mistakes, and errors and adversity are really beautiful opportunities to learn, to forge ahead and be the greatest version of ourselves. And we should be embracing that and be grateful for the setback. You know, I think about some of my setbacks in life, and it's like, you know, thank God I should write some people some thank you notes for what they did to me. And it was terrible adversity at the time, but looking back on it, without that, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah, and I think about what you said earlier about like the books that you guys have written, the conversations that we have, my book. Like, how do we get people to buy into that perspective? Because it's there. You know, honestly,
great question.
What as is evidenced by our conversation, the concept and the message of my book is not revolutionary. I'm not really breaking any new ground in terms of what the keys to success are.
You're not reinventing the wheel, as we say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's how can I communicate it in a way that someone will understand and embrace what I'm saying, what you guys are saying, what we're saying here, right? And I don't know that it's any one of them, but it's continuing the drumbeat and hoping that you bring some people along for the ride. Like, ultimately, if my book only changes the experience for, I don't know, I could almost say one athlete, right? But whoever it is, you know what? I'll feel like it was worth having done it, right? And then, so it's an interesting that's the thing that when you put all that time and energy into the book, you're like, I hope this is meaningful, right? I hope people get what's here, and it not just that they get it, but they utilize it. Because ultimately, it wasn't about writing a book. It was about I've experienced this and I've seen it, and I know it's kind of sort of counterintuitive to everything else that I'm seeing right here, but shut off the way you're thinking and try this, and I promise you it's going to take you places you never dreamed of. And so that's kind of why I'm here and why I'm, trying to get the book out there as much as possible and hear it directly from me, in the hopes that someone will say, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll give that a try.
Yeah.
I like
one last concept before we let you go, because we're almost out of time here. But your sort of last chapter is the story of Richard Jefferson, and you say, tough love is still love. And this has been a concept. I actually just wrote a blog about this last week. We had the women's NCAA basketball tournament. We had the scene with Brenda Fries, the Maryland coach, and her player face to face, yelling at each other on the side, not yelling, like she's getting in her face on the sideline, saying, I believe in you. You can do this. And she shifted the pattern and went and did well. And afterwards, her player says like, oh yeah, you know what? I asked her to coach me hard. I want that. And there was an amazing people going, look at that terrible example. I'm like, no, that's a great example. Given the context of those coaches, that coach, that athlete, their relationship, their age, the stage, that was great coaching. That's tough love. Stepping up to your first day of under-9 Little League practice and getting in a player's face and screaming at them, that is not tough love. That's just being an idiot, and so we can't use the ESPN clip as an example for our 9-year-old coach. And so just would love your thoughts on this idea of tough love, because I think it's something that today's kids need more of. They need resilience. They need this and tough love. I love you. That's why I'm doing this for you. Curious of your thoughts on that.
Well, this is why there's still a value in movies and books and telling the whole story, because I think we're in a place in society where we take a particular clip and then we judge off of that the rest of the story. Like we fill in all the blanks. And I would say that kind of behavior isn't necessarily healthy for, never mind the 9-year-old and the Little League situation, the professional coach or the college coach, or at any level. It's not necessarily the healthiest confrontation or way to communicate unless there's been a relationship built. Like, we don't know the backstory to their relationship, how they got there and how that is going to be received. Because I guarantee you that Freeze had so many situations where they were sitting in her office and having a conversation, or after practice they sat down and talked about various things, and it wasn't heated and it wasn't confrontational, and there was this trust there. And again, not to draw on my own experience, but like, I've had tough conversations with my kids about, hey, this is not acceptable, or this is what needs to change here. And they listened and they got the message because they knew, as Jerry said earlier, they knew I loved them, and they knew that that's not the way I always communicate, and that and there was also times where I may have been a little heated. Like, I'd be very interested to know, I would guarantee you at some point, Coach Freeze and the player also talked about it after the fact. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that that's an important part of it too. Because I'll go to, a Steph Curry, Steve Kerr situation where they had a tough loss, or there was something going on that Steve wanted corrected, and they didn't do it, and they lost the game, and Steph's at the podium and he says, we really need to clean up our act, and it was something. It was Steve had told the team prior to that game, we need to clean up our act, and Steph said something to the effect of, we weren't organized enough, and then Steph thought about it afterward. And he texted Steve to say, hey, I hope you don't think I was blaming you. Like, the saying we weren't organized was a comment on you. And Steve was like, no, you took accountability. You said it started with you, and you were carrying the right message. And however it went, that communication before, during, and after, to take one snippet of communication and say, oh, well, that's wrong. It's like, it depends, right? It depends. What was the conversation before that? What was the conversation after? I mean, all of us as parents,
yeah.
If you've told, or a coach, you've told somebody what to do like 6 times, I'm sorry, like, it's human nature.
Yeah,
I've already told you this 6 times. Yeah. Like, what do we got to do to follow what needs to be done? Sometimes sometimes it needs to get a little heated to get the message across, but how it lands is all about how was the relationship built in the first place.
Yeah, to me, demanding from others is really an act of love in itself. I wouldn't
And
demand.
belief, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm asking because
Yeah.
I believe you can do this.
I believe you can do it. I know you can be better, and I know you don't like it and it's uncomfortable, but I'm going to demand this from you because I love you. I love you, and I want to make you feel what it's like to be your very best. So it becomes an act of love, really.
And Coach Freeze was saying that in the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the other
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
We have these video clips. People don't hear the conversation necessarily. They just see the body language and the exchange, and they interpret something that may not necessarily be accurate. We have to accept that too.
Yeah. Well, you got to treat everybody differently too, as individuals. And so Brenda's relationship with that athlete was very different than her relationship with the point guard on the team. The point guard couldn't hear that. She would have to be like, just sort of like patted on the head or something like that. Whereas this other
Right.
one wanted her to get in her face. And it's like everyone's different, and we have to treat everybody as being different. Yeah.
By the way, the funniest, well, the most ridiculous part of the criticism after the fact is people are ignoring how the player responded. Like,
Yeah.
she became her best self on the floor,
Yeah.
and what they needed, obviously, like, Coach Freeze tapped into something there.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't, and I've seen it go the other way. I've seen coaches go crazy,
Yeah.
and you can see, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
That took the athlete the wrong way.
You know, there's a coach out there who gets a lot of pushback and a lot of negativity coming his way, which is Gino Auriemma. And he has that kind of relationship with all his athletes, where some athletes he gets in their face and they love it and what have you, and he figures out, you know, like, what do you need? How do I reach you? How do I get you to open your heart so you can be the best version of yourself? Invite me in to teach you what you need to know. And so there's a lot of criticism about a lot of coaches out there who are doing great work, and when you look at the results on the scoreboard, there's a reason why those results are there, is because there is a great relationship and there is the understanding that when I demand from you, it's because it's coming from love. I'm not going to just be an asshole and tell you what to do all the time. I'm going to know that this is what you need at this particular time, and go from there.
I think one of the things in sports that, as someone who's been in the business for a long time, one of the great issues that I have is that we take a certain element of a coach or a player and we make that the definition of who they are. And the reality is, Gino is a great coach. He's got great relationships. Is he perfect? No. None of us are. And we all make mistakes. And he made one recently, right? In his approach. Does that erase like everything else about him? And I don't want to go too far afield into the whole cancel culture and all of that, but like, we also have to, we all need a certain amount of humility, that we all make mistakes and we all have to be allowed to be mistakes. And it's really about, what do we do with that mistake? Like, I'm not, that it happened with Gino, and I can look at the circumstances, I can look at a lot of the dynamics of women's college basketball right now, and I can go, I know what led Gino to do that, right? So I understand that. What I am going to watch is, what does Gino do going forward?
Respond.
That, to me, is the most important part of this. Gino should be fired. No, that's not the answer here. That's not the solution. Gino's story would be way more powerful if Gino comes back and he approaches this in a different way.
Yeah.
That, to me, would be the real value here.
Which he did, in my estimation.
He made the apology, he acknowledged it, but now it's like, okay, next time you're in a heated situation against one of your arch rivals, like, what's that situation going to look like?
Yeah.
That, to me, is going to be the real proof.
Yeah.
That's the proof of whether he's coachable. So there we go. We can bring it all together.
Great, John.
Boom.
What a
Mic
great
drop.
comment.
Done.
Bam.
Put a bow on that.
God.
Thanks. The book, Coachable, How the Greatest Performers Reach Their Highest Potential, available in May of 2026. Any parting words, and then how people can connect with you, follow you on social media, and anything like that for our audience would be great.
Yeah, I'm on all the social media platforms. Probably the easiest way to do it, though, is just go to my website, Ric Bucher, RICBUCHER.com. It has links to the book. It has links to all of my podcast work and everything that I have going on. And no, I appreciate the conversation. It's always reassuring and motivating to hear people of like mind who have accomplished all that you guys have and have come to the same conclusions of, like, what's the path, what are the principles, what are the keys to all of this, and just continue to try to I don't want to say preach, because that's got such negative connotations for me, but to share the message of what we can really get out of facing any challenge, whether it be with our kids or with a coach or with our parents.
Brilliant.
Well said.
Well, listen, great. Well said. Great conversation. Thank you so much for being on The Way of Champions.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.